What's up guys, Collin Coates from Built to Wander. I'm down at 3D Off-Road and we've got Matt's Superduty build up on the lift behind me. Now we're actually gonna start the build by adding a full Carli Pintop Suspension System, a set of 37-inch Nitto Recon Grapplers wrapped around a set of 20-inch Method race wheels. Those upgrades will set the stage for all the accessories we add afterwards. Before we get started, like this video, subscribe to the Driving Line channel, let's get after it.
All right guys, now we got it up on the lift. The next part is we're gonna take the wheels and tires off, take out all the old suspension. We're gonna lay out all the suspension parts and the control arms side-by-side comparison so that you guys can really see the quality that Carli has. You know, and then the last part is we're gonna get all that new suspension put on. We're gonna get these 37-inch Recon Grapplers on the ground, and we're gonna get ready for the next part of the build. First one off. Let's place it. Let's roll it. All right, so what you can see here is that, you know, these thicknesses of the leaf packs are almost identical. But the biggest difference is that we have two big overload springs here to hold that weight when you're hauling a trailer. And the Deaver springs are a progressive pack. And what that does is allow that to move more freely with more travel. The last thing is that the bushings are molded rubber in the factory springs, which holds that position. And when you go to a poly bushing with the sleeve, and their shackles, all of that stuff works together to really allow that suspension to move the way we want it to. Sure. You know, we talk about the quality of parts, right? So they have these little cutouts right here. Zoom in on that, Collin. See how they made these nut tabs?
Yep. And
they fit the frame perfect, right? So when you're installing it, they drop right down inside that little groove right there.
Oh, wow.
I mean, so just the quality of parts that we're putting on this is just incredible. It's gonna be awesome. All right, so now we've got the progressive leaf pack put in with the new shackles put on, and now we've got the bump stop extensions put on, and now we're on to move on to the shocks. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the shocks quick, is that, you know, these are just a monotube shock, you know, great for everyday drivers with, you know, not off-road, a lot of off-road use on them. You know, and then we're moving up to the kings with the reservoirs. Carli has these specifically valved for these trucks, for the weight, for the constant use of off-road. The great thing about these is these are fully rebuildable. You know, if these ever start to leak, we can put new seals, new fluids, and recharge them, and they'd be just like they were new. The other benefit to these is that they have a bigger body on the shock. They hold more fluid, and with the reservoir, they also stay a little bit cooler. So, you know, with all this extra in here, you know, when I'm driving down those washboard roads or, you know, whipped out roads that I'm, you know, going camping on or whatever, this is gonna take that abuse and not overheat the shock. So great option to have. These things are gonna work great off-road and on-road.
With the rear suspension buttoned up, it's time to start mounting wheels and tires. I know this is one of Matt's favorite parts. He's been dying to see what these 20-inch Method race wheels will look like on the truck. And of course, those oversized 37-inch Nitto Recon Grapplers. Fortunately, Matt has a mounting and balancing machine in his shop, so we don't have to take them anywhere to get it done. So he's gonna go ahead and get that done. We'll get these wheels and tires mounted up on the rear end of this truck, and then we'll be moving up to the front to begin tear down of the factory suspension.
All right, now we're moving on to the front. So tiny. So tiny.
So initial teardown up front consists of removing those tiny factory shocks. We're gonna pull the front sway bar and then ultimately the springs, which will allow us to remove the factory radius arms. That's one of the biggest differences between our Carli suspension system and what the truck came with, and that's where we'll begin to reinstall the new components.
It's really loud. All right, so we got one of the radius arms off, and I want to show you guys the biggest difference between these. And so, you know, the factory ones are just two stamped out pieces of metal that are welded together, okay? And these are fabricated arms where they have a bunch of internal structural pieces welded in between it all. And if you notice how this has a bushing on this end, and once again, like we talked about when we were doing the rear, it's got a uniball on this side so that it can move as the suspension cycles. And so that way it allows that suspension to move freely, which in turn gives you a softer ride. So light.
So installing these Carli suspension radius arms is quite a bit more tricky than removing the factory ones. They are a bit more heavy duty. It's really important to make sure you torque these properly, as they are a very critical part of the front suspension on this truck. Once those are in place, we can go ahead and install the aftermarket bump stop extensions, and then we can add the front springs, which will allow us to actually get that suspension lift up front, followed by the king shocks with remote reservoirs.
Okay, so we just finished welding on the tabs for the limit strap. Now that it's all welded, we need to cover it up so it doesn't rust. And we're gonna spray that down with some Steel-It. And guys, this stuff works great. We use it all over the shop. We just sprayed our trailer with their new charcoal color. It's a great product. You know, I recommend this stuff a lot. All right, so we just pulled the track bar off. Guys, it's really important to replace the track bar, and obviously, once again, the quality of this with the big uniball here on this end to allow for that movement as the suspension cycles, and also to have the adjustability. Anytime you do a lift kit, I don't care if it's a 1-inch kit to a 6-inch kit, you want to do an adjustable track bar so you can keep that front axle centered underneath the truck at right height, and that way it keeps everything in the movement that it needs to be. So, once again, this high quality, giant Heim on this end and a big uniball on this end, all serviceable, great products. Yeah.
So with the heavy duty track bar in place, we can go ahead and install the aftermarket sway bar from Carli Suspension. From there, we can get the high and low mount steering stabilizers installed, which will allow this thing to feel really solid up front in the steering. From there, we're pretty well buttoned up. We can go ahead and get the front tires on this thing, get it dropped to the ground, torque up some final bolts on the rear suspension, and get this thing out of the shop for a first look at the new setup.
The moment we've all been waiting for.
All right, the truck is now on its own weight. We finished up the front end. We've got the new King shocks installed. We've done the springs, the control arms, sway bars, steering stabilizers, and brake lines. Actually, quite a few little components that took a little bit of time up front. But now this thing's on its own weight. Matt, what do we have to do to finish this up and get it out of the shop so we can go hit the road and test it out?
So all we've got left is to torque the wheels, of course. Now that it's sitting on its own weight, we're gonna tighten up the rear suspension, mainly the leaf springs. That way there was no bind in the bushings.
What do you think? Like, it's always so exciting for me when we do a new build and it touches the ground for the first time in the shop. So we both saw that. What was your kind of like first thoughts and impressions?
It's exactly the way I wanted it to look. It's got an aggressive stance to it. It's the perfect height. I absolutely love it right now.
Yeah.
I'm excited to drive it, so.
It looks sick. So we'll finish those odds and ends up, get this thing out of the shop, hit the road, and share our thoughts and impressions from there. So as we pull this truck out of the shop, can't help but be stoked on the outcome with the Carli Suspension System. The 37-inch Nitto Recon Grapplers turned out absolutely sick. You can expect on next episode to see a deep dive on the towing setup for this truck. We've got a full travel airbag system to install from CJC Off-Road. We're gonna talk about a trailer that Matt custom built down at 3D Off-Road to haul his Jeeps to and from trail runs, different off-road events. Should be pretty rad to talk about really the functional side of this truck, and then from there we'll be getting into more accessories. So there you guys have it. Phase 1 of our Super Duty build is now complete. We've got the Carli suspension fully installed, along with a set of 37-inch Nitto Recon Grapplers and the 20-inch Method race wheels. I think Matt is super excited about how everything came together, and we both can't wait to watch this build progress. Guys, drop me a comment below. Let me know what you think of the Carli suspension that we've added or the Nitto Recon Grapplers. If there's some must do accessories for this truck that we need to consider for the build, please let us know. I'd love to hear about it. And as always, hit the like button if you did and subscribe if you haven't. Until next time, wander on.
Thanks for watching Driving Line. If you guys like this video, consider subscribing to our channel so you'll never miss any of the content we create here. Whether you're into trucks, Jeeps, imports, domestic vehicles, or anything in between, we are here to fuel your passion. So hit that subscribe button and we'll see you guys next time.